calculation somewhere, but it'll be like 1,000 hours in a year, or at the most maybe 1,200 hours. So you're looking at definitely a 30-year life, and that's lamps and the driver. So it's the whole system that'll last that long, easily 30 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the other scope that's really attractive here that we are doing is, of course, these are projects that the city would like to do. Um, and again, there are energy savings here again, but it's more a capital item. And what we are trying to do is use this project to fund, like the ball field lighting, to fund the air conditioning also. So we're replacing air conditioning units at 7 units at the library. They're extremely old. I remember walking these units back 5 years ago, and they needed replacement at that time too. So yeah, that's a long overdue project. And again, the police department, as you probably know, has long-standing problems on its control systems. The heating hot water valves leak, and it's always a struggle to control that building. And so what we are planning on doing is replacing that system. And on the community center, you have a kitchen which has a storm cooler, and it just it's just we're going to replace that with an air conditioning unit, because there's just too much heat involved in that kitchen, and it's really very uncomfortable for the occupants. And sort of that heat, because the rest of the community center is air conditioned, so it's kind of spilled over into the you know uh, into the main community center also. So it will be good to air condition the kitchen. Um, so benefits are fairly obvious. Improves comfort. You're using the savings from the lighting project and the solar project to fund basically um, the air conditioning system and the ball field lighting. And of course, there's reductions um, in maintenance cost. And it's always good to do air conditioning replacement. You plan it, otherwise, obviously, it always breaks down during peak summer. Actually, I was a little worried if electricity might be turned off today, and I don't know what will happen to the study session if there's a power outage. But right now, I'm okay. So yeah, so it's always good to replace air conditioning at in a planned manner. One more note about sports lighting that on the previous slide, it does come with a 25-year warranty. So if anything goes wrong, we are using Musco, and they'll come and fix it. So it does include a 25-year warranty. Um, Water meter change out. Now, this is something that I know. Again, the council has been, considering this for a long time, and hopefully will, you'll see the financial cash flow and the way we are funding this. So the council has directed staff to keep a certain amount of money for its replacement. So there is money, some money that's already available, some money that's being collected in your rates. Um, so it says you can see and see my screen still, right? I don't know why I'm getting this signal. Okay. Um, so what we are proposing to do is replace 2,500 water meters, and we're going to use Badger Orion water meters. That's what the staff recommended, and it will be a completely automated system where you don't have to send people to read the meter. You can just read it anytime, from city hall or the corporation yard, wherever you choose to have the system. Um, Again, there are so many benefits of this water meter change out. Of course, you're eliminating, some labor cost by not having to read the meters. So there's meter reading cost savings. There's one of the main benefits will be you're right now doing bi-monthly billing. You'll be able to go to monthly billing. It'll enable leak detection. So you can get as extensive as you want on leak detection. You can have a customer portal, and customers can, look at their own water usage any day. And let's say they're using water at night, that means there's a leak somewhere when everything is shut off. So there's many ways to do leak detection. Um, it will cause some revenue to go up for the city because older meters tend to run slower, and so because the older meters tend to be inefficient, these meters, when you install them, they'll actually read what a resident is consuming, and it will, um, so your revenue should go up. Any question on
Ashu,
this?
I do. How will
I think you're
they?
very familiar with this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ashu, how will they be able to communicate? Will they be on Wi-Fi, or how does that actually work? And will we need to establish additional infrastructure for that?
Yeah, so it's based on uh, it's radio frequency. So there'll be we usually do what's called a study, which we what study is that? I'm blanking out, but you know you you have to have some tower or somewhere where you can communicate from that tower to each uh, with each meter. Sometimes you have to have one or two um, towers. So yeah, so it's done through radio frequency. I don't know if anybody else, the team wants to mention anything, but um, that's how it's done. It's through radio frequency.
Yeah,
It's not
the
through Wi-Fi
supplier
or anything like
typically
that.
provides their own carrier infrastructure. At least that's been my experience with other water meter jobs.
Yeah.
And they go through and they drive a truck around and do a water meter. They do a basically an RF communication study for the area. And if they find any dead spots, they'll usually say, "Hey, you need to put a tower up in this location so that you can eliminate those dead spots." It's pretty straightforward.
And at what point will we know that we're going to need to, add a tower to? And and the reason I'm looking at all this is just for a complete package deal, cost-wise, so that we don't have any huge surprises. I don't know how expensive the towers are.
Uh,
They're
that'll be all included in our price when we submit it to your final price. So we are hoping to come back to the council, if your council wants to move ahead with all this, in around 6 weeks to 2 months, and by the time we'll have a complete firm price. Um, the propagation study done. That's the word I was looking for, propagation study.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question. Are these the meters different than what we had already planned in our water rate structure when we increased the rates to the consumers, our citizens? Is this a different type of meter than what we're already starting to pay for in our rate increases?
Um, no, my understanding is these are the same meters that you were proposing to install through the rate increase. But I'll let Tammy answer that question.
That, that is correct. It is allocated in the rates already.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Keeping tab on time here. EV charging station just at City Hall for the for staff and community that come to the City Hall, and so that's just a dual port charging station that we're proposing to install there. So a big part of the project is doing solar installation. There are 5 sites that we are in what we are calling phase one, and I'll take you through that, each one of those. So City Hall, 38 kilowatts. I know this is shown behind the PD, but looking at the consumption of the city hall compared to the PD, this actually is going to be connected to the meter at the city. That's why we are calling it the city hall project. Uh, Community center, um, this, of course, all of these projects provide shade as well as, energy. So again, that's a great thing. So this is a 121 kilowatt system for community center. The library has a very small system because that's all is needed. Here's a slightly larger project for the police department. I know you park or people park RVs here, so it'll be at a height of around 14 feet clear, so the RVs can still be parked. And this is for the PD. Now the wastewater treatment plant, you have 2 meters there. One is the industrial meter, which is much larger, which will be impacted by the wastewater wastewater treatment plant upgrade. But we've sized a ground mount solar project for just the domestic meter. It's around 318 kilowatts. So this will go in. This is included in our proposed phase 1. With the phase 2 project, there'll be a solar project also, which will be designed to satisfy the load of the expansion. But this is just for the domestic side of the wastewater treatment plant. So every one of our projects, we like to do something for the community that we work in, and that is something we started, probably a decade ago, and we're still doing that. We, want to, not only do a facilities project, but to have a positive impact on the community that we are working in. And so there is a social budget that our company has. It comes out of the budget. It has nothing to do with the project.
I just forwarded you
But City of Mendota and City of Firebaugh, we contributed $25,000 each. For City of Firebaugh, it was to the Police Activity League. City of Mendota was also to a nonprofit. City of Madeira, we worked with Madeira Unified and did a program called Go Green. We provided internship for 10 students to work at the City Hall, and that'll be done next summer. We can do things like, and as you know, we did a very successful project for Escalon Unified. So, I'm sure Ron Costa will be very happy if you choose to go with that option. But we will fund any of these programs. We've done programs with for after school program for kids. Through your rec department, we support local events like maybe a Christmas, your Christmas event. I understand you have a wine stroll, or there could be something for the seniors. So there's you can choose any program, and we'll be happy to work with your staff in putting it together. And that's something we absolutely like to do. And we take this thing very seriously. We have 5 staff members in our company that just focus on these programs. That's all they do. They're not involved in energy or anything like that. So this is something we take. And this is done more because we have we do a lot with schools, and there's a lot we do with online, well, not only online, but just a lot of programs that we have with schools. I want to keep an eye on the time. So here's the cash flow analysis, just a preliminary one for what we are calling phase 1, which is everything that I've shown you until now. So the total project cost is $5.5 million, and its budget, I don't think it'll exceed $6 million, and I don't think it'll go down below 5. So you can say roughly between 5 and 6 million is what the ultimate project cost will be. the city already has 300,000 in their water meter program, so we are saying that, we can use that money for the water meters. So you'll actually finance 5.1 million, and with a 20-year finance term, 2.8% interest, and that's just an estimated interest, but that's pretty real. We've assumed certain escalation rate, PG&E 6%, MID 2%, and our O&M cost by 3%, our operation and maintenance for the solar project. Now, you know, PG&E is slated for a 14%, has asked for a 14% price increase this year, and because of all the, liability issues and, the amount of money they have to invest in their infrastructure, in their transmission lines, what's going on with PG&E. So 6% is actually pretty fair. Some would say conservative. MID, we purposely kept pretty low, just 2%, because even though they don't have a history of increases, I think generally we are seeing a lot of price increase on electricity. So the first year energy savings are 176,000. This is the projected revenue increase, 49,000. That comes out to $1.50 per month for each resident, and that's because when I mentioned that the water meters tend to run slower over time, and actually they read really inefficiently at the low water usage, which is what most residences consume. So we've taken some of your meters and we have sent them to a lab to actually figure out what the inefficiency is. So we'll have a better number, next time. But you've taken 5% revenue increase, which is sort of the low end of what we see. This is the money that you've been keeping in your water rates every year, 52,606. O&M savings are, I don't know, I'm getting some feedback, but O&M savings are savings from, replacing your, not needing to rent ball field lighting, not having to replace lamps and ballasts for your buildings, not having to do air conditioning repairs and replacements. So we've calculated that as 32,000. This is done according to the California Energy Commission guidelines, and so we've used those guidelines to calculate the O&M savings. So these are the total program savings. We completely maintain the solar system. You don't have to do anything. We do all the electrical maintenance, all the cleaning, and we've structured the lease payments to come to a net positive constant savings. So over the life of the project, you're saving around 4.2 million, 4.3 million, and 45,000 every year for the finance term. So that's, I think, is the end of the phase 1 presentation. I ran through it fairly fast. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, Shu, if you don't mind, what is the lifespan of the solar panels? It sounds like they'll help.
That's a great question. Yeah, so the solar panels are actually guaranteed for 25 years, and they'll typically last at least 30 years. And so that's why you see at year 21, we've dropped every other project out. The water meter project, the LED lighting, even the ball field lighting, which actually I could have kept that for 30 years, but we've set 20-year project life for everything else except for solar. So the solar savings continue while everything else has been stopped at 20 years. The savings have stopped at 20 years.
Okay. Can I make the assumption that the meters that we're talking about could potentially have a 30-year lifespan as well?
Typically, meters will only have a 20-year life cycle. Yeah.
Okay. Any other council members that have any questions for Ashu regarding phase 1?
Unfortunately, I got here late, Robert. I was tied up in a job I couldn't get off, but I didn't catch a lot of it. But my question about the solar is the solar project concerned? Is it going to be in the same location we talked about before off of St. John?
I'm not sure where St. John is, but these are, I don't know if you can um, see the presentation, but these are um,
You're at the sewer
the,
plant.
at the sewer plant. It's not going to be, so the domestic meter is not along the boundary. Last time we had a solar project going down here, which is right next to the other property. So we're not doing that right now. We're just putting it, um, you know, if you can see, this is a small project. Well,
Excuse me,
for the
Aju.
domestic meter side.
So,
How much energy will it produce, and what will it do to our current bill?
hold on just a moment. Councilmember Alves, they're not doing a solar farm. There are multiple sites that are doing canopies and solar at the sites where the energy savings will be applied.
I see. Instead of one main source, they'll have it at different locations.
Correct.
Correct. So
Well,
let me
but-
talk about that. Go ahead.
My question is then, in terms of accumulative, how does that apply towards what we've already discussed, Tammy? Does that look like it's the same situation we were in before, better or worse?
Well, based on the cash flow, it looks like we would be about in the same position.
Except that we'd have them in different locations opposed to one main position.
Correct. And as you can answer a little bit more about the solar farm
Right.
and some of the issues that you may have in trying to do that.
So MID does not allow you to do a solar farm and allocate the credits to different facilities. So we never proposed that. MID will only allow you to install solar for the meter and only for the annual consumption of that meter. You're allowed to net meter every month. And it's monthly net metering, which means you have to have a true up every month. In PG&E territory, you have a true up every year, and you can actually install a solar farm and avoid around 40 to 50% of your energy use at other facilities. But unfortunately, your PG&E bill is relatively minor, so we are basically getting rid of that bill by installing solar at each location, which is always financially a better way to do it. But MID, your biggest facilities for MID is the wastewater treatment plant, and there's space here to do it. So it really is no need to install a farm somewhere else and feed the wastewater treatment plant and other buildings, because we are basically taking care of all your energy use by installing solar at each location, and really we are avoiding around 95% of your bill, electricity bill, with solar and all these efficiency measures.
For how long? 25 years?
30 years?
30 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other question?
Well, I missed a lot, so I don't know what you guys talked about. But how are we addressing
Go ahead.
this analysis you're doing for us? It is issues. It's dealing with the solar issues. It's dealing with water, sewer. Am I right?
Correct. Building lighting, air conditioning, ball field lighting, air condition. I said that before, and water meters and solar.
Okay. Mr. Swift, what do you think?
I think it sounds good so far. It always boils down to the numbers and, of course, cash flow and what are we willing to stomach. I mean, the bottom line is that, this is one of those things where in the long run, so, it's going to be the smartest approach. The technology is advancing, and we need to find a way to advance with it. And if we can do it in a way that's going to save us a heck of a lot of money, we should do it. So it just all boils down to, what kind of cash flow do we have, and can we do we want to go ahead and take the plunge and do it? Now, we haven't talked about phase 2 yet. And
Well, let me ask
Tammy,
you this.
yes,
Can we get a hard copy of this to review?
that's what I was going to ask Tim. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, we did email the city manager a copy, but I'll be happy to print and overnight them to you. You prefer.
I would
That'd be
like to
great.
be able to review them. I'm sorry for being late and tardy, but unfortunately I have a business to run, and sometimes it runs late. But at any rate, I would like to see more about it and read more about it. So far, it does look good, but again, I'd like to review it.
Absolutely, and I'll give the city manager has my number. If you anytime want to contact me, I think that'll be absolutely fine. I do want to address one more thing. The cash flow it looks good, but I want you to realize that we are doing certain things here which are capital intensive. The ball field lighting is several $100,000. Air conditioning usually doesn't have a payback, not a good payback at least. So we're replacing all your air conditioning, which is at the end of its life, and so you have to spend that money anyway. So the other way to look at this cash flow is, you're doing things here that you would have to spend money on otherwise. So that this cash flow doesn't account for that, the benefit. We can make this cash flow much more attractive by eliminating, but just keeping solar and LED lighting in the buildings. There is somebody who's asking me questions. Unfortunately, they come and go away. I'm trying to see what the question is here.
Yeah, Shu, can you see those under the GoToMeeting dashboard?
Yeah, see how many electric vehicles does the city staff have regarding the? So that's a question that I'll have to ask city manager to respond to.
Okay.
I'm responding.
Okay. The other question was, can the propagation study be completed before the Yes, we will complete that before the contract. Or, a lot of times, we'll give you a guaranteed price the next time we come in front of you. Okay.
Can we ask questions?
Sure.
Is the public able to ask questions?
Yes, yeah, it's a workshop.
Okay. Hi, Kurt Dan, 0389 Noni. Welcome, everybody. Does this project include Escalon's 10% general government charge?
Escalon government charge.
The administration charge is not part of the project.
Will it be?
I'm not sure what they put in their estimates. But typically a fund should pay for its own administration of a project.
Okay, I was just curious about that. Under the payback here, will there also be a column of what the debt service is going to be incurred and how much of that net savings is going to pay that?
Well, the debt service is here under this column, lease payment. So it's outlined here. Does that answer your question?
What's the debt service on, this $5.5 million 20-year project monthly?
It's $7 million over the 20-year life. So if you're going to average it out, it'll be $350,000 a year.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
My question is, how does that compare to the current debt service we have already, based on the same circumstances?
Debt service in regards, we don't have any current debt service for any of these projects.
So in other words, they're paid for, is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure that I understand your question.
My question is, we're asking him to give us a number on operations for this improvements we're going to be making, and he's given us a number at 300 something per year. My question is, what are we paying currently for the same type of thing, or for the facilities we currently have that aren't enhanced with his improvements? What are we currently paying?
So he was saying that the lease payment is identified in this cash flow. The first few years is a little bit less, but an average of $350,000 over the year. You're gonna pay for that through your savings in electricity, through some projected water revenue increase, through the meter program that you're already collecting through your current rates, and then some O&M savings. That's what's gonna make up the lease payment.
So what you're telling me is we have sources of income that are going to cover the cost of the $350,000 per year. You've identified those costs through savings and through water increases and other things. Is that correct?
Yeah, and not necessarily water increases, but more accurately read on what the water usage is through the meters.
Okay, will we be able to see that analysis when we see the hard copy where it breaks it down like that?
Yeah, it's on the screen right now.
Okay,
I
but
think- yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Alves, I think the column you want to look at is total program savings. And you
Okay.
compare that, yeah.
but I don't. I want to be able to understand it better than looking at it like I have. And I really, I apologize for being late, but it's hard for me to catch up.
I think if I understand it correctly, instead of paying MID our almost $34,000 in the check register I just looked at every month, we're making lease payments for slightly less than the $400,000. It looks like we're probably paying MID on an annual basis. That goes away, and we make lease payments instead to facilitate these savings. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're shifting the burden from one place to another, but with a little bit of a savings.
Correct.
That is correct.
Long term.
Okay, just because of timing purposes, I know we have a hard stop at 7 and we still have a lot to cover. So I'm gonna ask Ravi Baxter to take us through the wastewater treatment plant slides, and you'll have to be a little quick, Ravi. So let me bring it up. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Oh, jeez. No.
While you do that, I'm going to ask our legal counsel, what happens if we don't call the meeting right at 7? Let's say it's 7:10. What happens? Ben?
Yes, I'm just unmuting.
Okay.
Well, the risk is that there may be people wanting to attend and expecting it to start at 7. You could,
But the beauty of that is that this is the same meeting code.
Yeah.
right, so I guess, at 7 o'clock, you could just say, this is the normal time, but we're not finished with our workshop, and we will be convening to our regular meeting as soon as this is over.
Yeah, if that's okay, I'd like to do that. I don't want to rush through this or anything like that, and that's a good idea. So I'll be looking at the clock for 7 p.m., man. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
And I will be quick. Basically, folks, what we're doing is we're redesigning your wastewater treatment plant so that you don't have the issues that you have right now. Fundamentally, the plant's been working for a number of years, but the technology that it uses, which is open lagoons, no longer works for today's regulatory environment and suffers from inefficiency and high operational costs. As an example of some of the costs that you have to incur, you have to pay somebody to go out into the lagoons and rake up the trash and the debris that people flush down their toilets. The industrial discharge is of such a level that you have to bring in liquid oxygen in trucks to dump into the lagoons to provide enough oxygen for the bugs that break down the waste to breathe. And because you have mechanical surface aerators, you have a very inefficient treatment system, and so that's costing the city a lot of money in terms of energy costs, liquid oxygen, and contract labor. And then the sludge right now goes into these setting ponds, and it has to be scraped up again manually and trucked off to a land application to an orchard, and it's spread on the ground. Costs you $60 a ton, so you spend about $400,000 a year in disposing of the biosolids. So that's the existing condition. The other issue is that the treated water goes into these percolation ponds and percolates to the groundwater, and because of the high volume of solids from the industrial treatment plant, these basins are clogged, And so you've had a number of regulatory enforcement actions in the past because of water quality, discharge, and odor issues. So our solution to you on the next slide, Ashu, is basically a fully automated plant with screens, bar screens, and grit removal so that all the stuff that gets flushed down the drain that isn't wastewater can be screened and hauled off. We have a medical scaled up version of the medical oxygen generator that people use in their houses to provide oxygen so you don't have to truck it in. We're using a highly automated sequence of batch reactors that basically run themselves to give you lower capital costs. And we are dewatering, which is basically filtering the sludge and then drying it in a solar dryer before you haul it off. So this reduces the amount of sludge that you produce by 90%. So you're going to get a big reduction in sludge handling costs. And we're going to power all of this with solar panels because this is going to be a very compact plant, and we'll have plenty of space for additional solar panels. And finally, we're going to filter the water instead of discharging it into the percolation basin. What we're going to do is put it into a tank, disinfect it with chlorine, and then discharge it to the South San Joaquin Irrigation District irrigation canal. So they'll actually pay us to take the water. And so that is something that they've expressed an interest in doing as well. So with this, we basically solve several problems all at once. On the next slide, I have the benefits.
Ravi, did you talk about the Class A biosolids? I don't know if you did the solar dryer and everything.
Yes, I did. I talked about the solar dryer.
Okay.
Yeah, the Class A biosolids, yeah, is a detail we'll talk. If someone is interested in talking about, in the interest of time, I'm trying to get through the highlights. So basically, you're going to get cost savings from efficient aeration. We're going to be producing oxygen on site. So air is 20% oxygen, so we might as well take it out of the air rather than pay to have it trucked in. We're going to be producing 90% less solids, and because they're going to be dried, they are what are known as Class A biosolids, which means they can be disposed of anywhere rather than specific applications. So that's of great benefit in the agricultural community. So we're no longer going to need manual screening operations, so people no longer have to go into the lagoons wearing waders and rake out stuff that gets in there. We have fully automated treatment, and that's because right now most wastewater plants in North America were built when energy was cheap and controls were expensive, and now the situation is just the opposite, so we're taking advantage of that. Basically, this plant can be run from your cell phone if you wanted to. You know, it can be remotely monitored. Generates reusable water that can be used by the South San Joaquin Irrigation District. But one of the biggest benefits is right now you have a moratorium on new construction because of inadequate domestic water capacity. Now, whether you want to lift that moratorium or not, because we have the flexibility to treat both industrial and domestic wastewater in the same plant, there's no need to expand the plant if your population increases. It's the same plant. It will handle industrial loads when the industries are discharging, and it has surplus capacity to treat wastewater when the industries are not discharging, and it has the flexibility to move the treatment around so that you can treat either industrial or treat domestic. So it's kind of a Swiss Army knife of wastewater treatment plants. So then you have, of course, energy efficient solar drying. Anytime you're shipping water, you're paying a lot of money to ship the product, and so the solar drying takes advantage of heat from the sun, dries the sludge, and kills the bacteria in the process. So we're eliminating the open lagoons, so you won't have any more odor complaints. I hesitate to say that any wastewater plant is ever going to be odor-free, but I can assure you that you'll have much fewer complaints than you do right now. And finally, because the water discharge regulations are getting more and more stringent, because you might be required to remove nutrients, remove nitrogen, remove phosphorus, this is a design that, because it's new technology, it has built-in compliance. It is designed for all of those things. So those are all the benefits of the new design. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Ashu, and he can talk about how much all of this is going to cost.
My question for you is this. You mentioned that you'll be able to do a multitasking in terms of treatment for both entities, in terms of the city and as well as the commercial. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilman Alves.
My next question. Because of that, that means that the capacity we currently have, which is abundant on the one side, can now be split or used on the other side, which eliminates us in a position to have to go out and get more property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what is it you think our capacity would be if this system was enacted? Do you think it would increase it by 20, 30, 10, 5%? How much more?
So right now, your capacity is 0.3 MGD. Because of all the surplus industrial capacity, you can go up to you'll go up to 3 MGD. So it's a factor of 10 increase. So you can easily have 10,000 people in the town if you need to. But most of the capacity, of course, will be used for the industry, the industrial discharge, and then you'll have surplus capacity. But when you're building something, you don't want to build something the same size that you already have. You always want to allow room for growth because additional concrete is relatively cheap.
Well, we're not going to grow. We're just going to reconfigure it.
Yes, exactly.
Which would give us the same advantage of growth without the cost.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more slide, which is the lift station.
No, but I think the.
Oh, sorry.
Quick question, Robbie. How closely did you, I know that we did a study by pace on this. Are your findings pretty similar to theirs? Did you see a lot of variance? What do you think?
Yeah, so PACE is on the same team as us. They're a subcontractor to us right now, and they will be a subcontractor to us going forward. And the reason for that is they have a good knowledge of the local environment, and they're very good civil and structural guys. And Tom and I are process guys, so we have a good fit. And we've been working closely with PACE since day one. We used their master plan to come up with the design for the project, and then we used them to go collect samples from the industries. And now we are using them to do process models and estimate costs. So we're working together with PACE on this.
All right, thank you.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
Why do we use Eugenie then when we're using PACE? And they gave us 5 different options.
I'm sorry, what is the question again? Why are we using
PACE
NG?
put out a report. PACE put out a report, and it presented it to the council, and there were 5 or 6 different levels of treatment. Most of all of them are included right here. What's going to be the difference between their cost and what they presented to the city and yours? That's number one. Number two, I don't see anything on here that includes anything for the industrial facilities to upgrade. Do they or do they not need to upgrade before the effluent hits the city treatment plant?
So let me answer the first question. The master plan was a plan. It was a feasibility level effort, and we are using that master plan, and we are using PACE to do our design. Now, what we are finally going to come back, if the council has interest in moving forward with this, we will come back with a guaranteed price for you. So with a design, it's a difference between a feasibility study. They did a feasibility study, came up with different options. Our experts are working and will work with PACE and come back with one recommendation for the council, and we will give you a turnkey price to build that. It will be a firm price. So that's the difference. It's a plan versus, we're giving you a guaranteed maximum price for that.
And one that will be paid for by savings.
Yeah. And with my memory, I've already forgotten the second part of the question.
Yeah, so the second part of the question was the industry. Do they need to upgrade? Right, we have talked to the industries. We talked to Kraft Heinz. We talked to Eckert. And basically, their equipment is in reasonably good shape. It's just that the constraints of processing a lot of tomatoes when tomatoes are available results in big peaks and valleys in their production. So when they have a lot of peak tomato production, a lot of tomatoes that need to be processed, they got to get those tomatoes into cans. And so, you know, the amount of wastewater that they generate is a secondary consideration for them. So what happens is all of that, you know, it's really not their fault or anybody else's fault. That's just the nature of having an industry that generates a lot of wastewater in the city. And so we have to be able to handle it in the wastewater plant. And because of the flexibility in our design, we were able to do both the industrial and the domestic in the same plant with just minor variations in routing the different flows so that we can handle this kind of product.
I have a question. When you were discussing this with the industry or the cannery, were they indicating to you they were interested in doing more of the process on their property, or are they willing to just let the system take care of it, or are they willing to do more of it on their own project, I guess?
They've looked at processing on their own, pre-treating some of the stuff, the waste on their own, Councilman Alves. I believe the concern they came up with was that it would cost them too much. You know, industries generally look at something like 3-year payback because they don't have access to financing that cities do. So, you know, but of course that's an internal decision whether to pre-treat or not. Some industries do, others don't. If they had any kind of predictability as to what their tomato production is going to be, then they might be able to make that kind of decision. But because of the variability in the weather and various other factors, I don't believe they have indicated nothing to us about pre-treating.
Good enough.
And that's the problem. It doesn't. The problems that the city faces are all usually generated by the industry, and rather than just letting them off the hook and not look into pre-treatment before it gets to our plant, if they don't want to do that because of the variability of their product, then they should pay for part of the plant so that it can take care of those wastes that they don't want to take care of on site. I believe that.
They will.
Yeah, they are going to be paying a part of it, and we will see that in the cash flow that comes up next.
I would think that their rate structure, based on the flow into our system, how dirty it is versus how it's pre-treated. If it's not pre-treated, they pay more because of the levels of the BOD or suspended solids or anything like that.
Yeah.
If those numbers are up, they pay more in their rate structure, and they might learn that pre-treatment might be their way to go to solve that problem with that invoice that we send them.
And that's a very good point, because we are going to be measuring more accurately what they're discharging, so we'll know that as part of this project.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things I was curious about, in a little bit past, we talked about water meters, and you're going to have them analyzed for their accuracy. Is there a history with water heaters that indicates that the possibility that they are not functioning accurately? Is it? I mean, I don't understand why we are now analyzing the water meters.
Water meters? The
water meters, yes. You talked about them probably not being efficient over a period of time. They lose accuracy, and you were going to have them analyzed. My question is, the byproduct of it being analyzed, interesting, how it's going to affect anything else. So I'd like to know, when you analyze these water meters, it could definitely change the dynamic plan, yes or no?
I mean, the old water meters, the mechanical meters that you have do become inefficient over time. So the residents are actually not paying for the water they are consuming, and that's an assumption on our part, but it's an assumption based on a lot of experience. Now the new meters are solid state and they don't lose accuracy, so that's why we are sending the old meters to the lab just to figure out, if you're going to put that in the cash flow, saying that, each resident, that the revenue for the city will go up, you want to have some basis for that. Right now, we've assumed a 5% increase in revenue, and we want to have a, clear basis on um, what the revenue increase will be.
So you're proposing all electronic meters, correct?
We're proposing all. Sorry, you were cutting out for a second. We're
Sorry.
proposing the solid state meters. Yeah.
Which are electronically done, and there'll be a home station at the city where they'll be able to receive the messaging from each meter that instead of having an individual read them, correct?
That is exactly correct.
Okay, my next question is, who protects the meters from being manipulated or not accurate? When do we check those annually, quarterly, or when? I mean, we're now going to electronic metering, which is fine, but at the same time, we have no way to verify their efficiency or inefficiency.
I mean, so the meters are solid state, and you're getting information on them. You can actually get it every day if you want. So, you know,
So
My
I don't think it
question
would be,
is,
I guess
how do we establish the accuracy, other than you telling us what it is in terms of it coming in as information broadcasted from these meters? How do we know whether or not those are accurate?
actually accurate or not.
How would-
Okay, I will have to ask, our water meter guys. So I will note the question and get back to you about
well,
I can answer that real quick, Ashu. Is
Go
what they actually do on that is they actually will test a batch of meters on a certain interval, and they will analyze the drift of those meters. Now it's not going to be accurate, of course, for every single meter, because no way you can count on a meter when it goes bad. But for on whole, when you run through a set of meters and you analyze those, you can set over time. You can analyze those meters and see how much drift they have, and analyze when those meters are likely to need to be refurbished or replaced. That's pretty common practice for
What's
a
the
water
li-
meter system.
What's the lifespan of these water meters?
20 plus years. And a lot of times by refurbishment, you can put them back to almost a brand new state.
Okay, so the reason I asked the question, of course, is because when we change out the meters, people are going to suggest one of two things. They're either saving water or costing more water. I just want to be prepared to know how to answer those questions.
Well, you can sample a portion of the meters and test them. There is a cost associated with that, with taking those old meters and testing them. And you can do that and say, hey, on average, our old meters have drifted 5 or 7%. Or you
Yeah,
can
no, that's
test
what
every
we are
single
doing.
meter, but that's a lot more expensive proposition to test every single meter.
No, so yeah, the current meters, we have taken some from from your staff, and we are getting them tested, and that's just to give an indication. We're going to be guessing on the low side. We're going to be assuming, we're going to be very conservative. So that's how we are coming up with the inefficiency of the current meters.
If I can interrupt there really briefly, and I do apologize, it's 7:03. I don't see anybody new chiming into the regular council meeting, but we are still in the workshop regarding the progress of the feasibility study by NG Energy. And so that's what we're doing right now. So the council meeting will be starting time approximate when the workshop is finished. And thank you for joining in.
Thank you. Councilman Alves, I don't know if you answered your questions on the water meters, but we'll get, I understand what you're saying, and, about the inefficiency of the existing meters, and, the cost savings versus the revenue side, and we'll have some more answers for you next time after we have the meters that we've taken, after we get them tested.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just trying to put myself in a situation so when things happen, I have something to fall back on. Because if we put in all new meters and I get calls from the people in the community saying they're paying more for their water all of a sudden, I want to know why.
Yeah, we'll definitely arm you with that answer. And that is a very good concern, and that's a concern that we have every time we do these projects. Okay, Ravi, if you don't mind running through the
So the last,
stations.
the last slide is, the lift stations and the stormwater lift stations, both of those convey water to the wastewater plant, and so a number of them have issues. The one on La Mesa basically are old pumps that are at least 40 years old, and they have frequent clogs. And so the part of the project is to replace them with newer solids, with newer pumps that are capable of handling higher levels of solids, either the newer Gorman-Rupp pumps or the newer Flight pumps. The Kerrigan lift station is basically, you improve the wet well flow and output control system, without causing backups, and then we're going to upgrade the pumps. So both of those are going to save you significant amounts of labor and service calls. We calculated about 800 to 1,000 hours, and then also because they're going to be more efficient, it'll reduce energy use, free up resources that can be used elsewhere, and basically you have new assets in place instead of the aging 40-year-old assets that you have right now as far as the lift stations are concerned. So at this point, Ashu will talk about the cash flow for this wastewater treatment portion of the project.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. That was supposed to be sewers lift station. I apologize for that. These are not stormwater lift stations. Okay. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is very preliminary. This is not like the phase one cash flow that we presented, which we are, pretty comfortable. It's within plus minus 10%. This is still being developed. We still need to do a lot of engineering, and part of the reason we wanted to have the study session is to get council's feedback on, whether you think this is something that the council would like to move forward with, having us develop this. I mean, we have done around 10% engineering. To get to firm prices, we need to, come up to around 30% engineering, and there's a huge difference between 10% and 30% in terms of time spent and dollars spent by us. So right now, we think it's the wastewater treatment plant is approximately a $20 million project, and we added $1 million for the sewer lift station work. And if council decides to move forward, we'll of course finalize everything. Electricity savings, this is what you've been consuming in the industrial side of the meter, and we'll put a solar project, so that will be saved. And we've increased everything by 2% per year, the savings. 157,771, that is the amount of money you're spending on liquid oxygen. And so that will be saved. Sludge disposal, you're spending around, 350 to 400,000. There still is going to be some sludge disposal costs, so we conservatively estimated, we took $100,000 off of your current expenditure. This is again just a conservative estimate on how much revenue you can get from South San Joaquin Irrigation District for the water. Here's what Ravi was saying about the industries contributing to this project. Now, as far as contributing capital, that's entirely up to the city and the industries. But what we are thinking, the industries do pay for the amount of TSS they generate. But what we are proposing to do is measure it at lift station outside the industry, sort of have cities control of it, and we think with a much more accurate reading, we think that the revenue will go up approximately by $360,000 a year. So that's based on what we've seen, and so that's sort of the additional contribution from the industry that will happen when you do more accurate reading of the TSS. O&M savings, this is the amount of money that you're spending on labor with outside agencies, and we think, and we've analyzed your ledgers, and we think, conservatively you can save approximately $200,000. The city manager mentioned that the industries are paying around $104,000 in debt services, and then that can be continued. There is, for the sewer lift station, there's a $65,000 budget that's in the rates that's being collected. So that can pay for the sewer lift station upgrades. So the total program savings in year one are 1.3 million. The lease payments are 1,044,000, and we think you'll see a net savings of 300,000. And over the life of the project, which is easily 30 years, you'll see a $31 million increase. $31 million net savings after paying for all costs. Obviously, all this is very preliminary. We still need to do a lot of work here. But what we are trying to show you is, here's a way for you to fund this project without increasing your rates, without keeping capital in your, without using your capital money. You will finance it, but we're showing you, similar to phase one project, a way to fund this wastewater treatment plant upgrade and expansion using your existing, revenue and cost streams. So this is what we wanted to show you, and then there's one more slide I need to go through. But please ask any questions about this cash flow analysis or anything else.
You say without raising your rates, what kind of money needs to be put up front for this, or do we not do anything until we make sure the financing is there?
There is no upfront cost. It's going to cost us to do this entire study. It's going to cost us several $100,000, and we've, like I mentioned last time I was in front of you, we've decided to do this at our risk. So we're not charging you anything for the study. The project cost of $20 million for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, that pays for everything. There is no out-of-pocket cost that you'll have, and if you have, that can be financed. And when we come to, if you decide to move forward and we bring this project back to council, first of all, we'll do another study session with final costing and everything. It's a big project, and but we'll identify all the costs that the city might have, and there'll be a much more identification of costs. And if there are any costs the city has to bear, that'll be part of the cash flow, and those can be financed.
Okay, when you speak about financing, what are we referring to?
Means the city will have to take a loan. Similar to the phase one project, you will be taking on a loan.
Okay, it's not something to do with you. That's outside of you.
That we do not finance projects. That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
Tammy, are you there?
your analysis, just a minute, your analysis, when you're doing it, does it include the cost of financing and the payback on the financing?
Correct. So the 20 million financing is actually costing you 28.5 million, and that includes, usually if you, we can get into what kind of financing. There are some financing, if you do a third, a regular tax-exempt lease purchase with Bank of America, there is no cost to the financing. If you do certificates of participation, for a $20 million financing, it'll cost you around $200,000 to $250,000 to arrange the financing. So, all those details still need to be worked out.
Yeah, it's good to know those details. That adds to the profit and loss.
Absolutely. And next time, if we bring this project, everything will be identified.
No, Ashu, I just want to, again, clarify, looking at this chart, it does look like you're right. You're not going to need, theoretically, at this point, increased rate, because your program savings from what you would be spending otherwise is going to be, or at least, close to your lease payment. Am I reading that right?
That is exactly right. Now, again, similar to the water meters, you're accurately counting the water consumption, so your revenue is going up a little bit. Same for the industries here. We think when you accurately monitor the TS test, that actually they'll end up paying $360,000 more.
Yeah.
And just as a note, Mayor, the current payment that they make for the $104,000, that was to pay back the general fund, for the loan that was made to the industrial operating fund, and at the end of this fiscal year, it will either be paid in full or have a very small balance left.
What's going to be paid? I missed that, Tammy. What's going to be paid off this year, possibly?
So the debt payment that the industries pay right now, the $104,000 a year, that was established to pay back the general fund loan of $500,000 that was made to the industrial operating fund.
that
So
will
what's
be-
being proposed is that they would continue to pay that even after that loan is paid, which it should be paid by the end of this fiscal year or have a small balance left.
That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh,
Tammy, are you available?
yes.
Tammy, what did Pace charge for their study, and did we already make that payment?
I don't remember the dollar amount right offhand, but yes, we did already pay that. I want to say it was around 65,000.
I know we split it with the industrial people. They had, in their report, given us de minimis amount of work to be done right up to the Capitol or Cadillac plan, which this one seems to be. The council at the time of the PACE presentation decided they wouldn't go with the Cadillac plan, that they were more interested in something in between. I think it was the third or fourth proposal. Are we going to review these proposals side by side and take a look at what's more financially responsible for the city?
Well, like I mentioned, if I may answer that question, sir, you know, that was a master plan with several options. We're working with PACE to come up with the best option. So, you know, in terms of cost, in terms of, you know, the flexibility that it allows between industrial and domestic, you know, wastewater treatment processes. So, you know, we'll be happy to have PACE as part of the meeting. Next time we, you know, bring this project for a study session, just the wastewater treatment plant one. And, but, you know, it's a consensus that we've come to. So, again, that was a plan. We're talking, you know, we'll be coming back to you with some concrete, you know, concrete prices and savings and revenue, and you know, for the 30% design. You know, just for your, you know, just FYI, 30% design for this plant will cost $500,000 to $600,000. You know, for $65,000, obviously, PACE did not do that kind of analysis. We are doing that kind of analysis, and that's my, you know, the reason we wanted to discuss all this with the council today was also because, you know, we would like to get some feedback. I know this is not an action item, but it's a request. If you can give us some feedback, the council can give us some feedback on, is this something that you think is doable? You know, it's a $20 million project, and, you know, between now and 3 months from now, we'll be spending, you know, over a couple of $100,000 on developing this project, and we just want to make sure that, you know, there is no fatal flaw here in what we are presenting, so that, you know, we don't want to incur that expense, even though the city is not liable for it, because we've given you that commitment. You know, it is still, and it is a lot of time and effort on your staff's side too. It's not, you know, staff has to work with us on this. So I just wanted to get some temperature from the council. If there's something that's doable, I'm not asking for a decision. I'm not asking that you can change your mind later on. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
I just want to know. Yes, sir.
Sure, and to that very point, do you want us to unpack this as in phase 1 versus phase 2, or the entire plan, or what I'm going to do is ask each council member for their thoughts. So I want to know how we want to frame it.
Absolutely, phase 1 and phase 2 separately, because they're really separate projects for us.
Okay, well, let me go around the table right now. We'll ask each council member what they think of phase 1 and then phase 2. Councilmember Bellinger.
I'm in favor of phase one as it's presented currently. Obviously, we want to look a little more in depth at that with the numbers, but what's presented looks acceptable currently for our first step on that before we get the finalized numbers.
Phase two?
Phase two, I'd like to see some more information. Obviously, I'm not sure about spending another $250,000 for this gentleman's company without giving him some feedback here. The initial look looks good right now. I know it's $20 million, but if there's a payback long term and it looks good, then that's fine. I agree that there might be some review process of some of the smaller project costs, but I guess at the end of the day, if you shorten and make that project smaller at say $7 to $10 million, or one of those other middle range projects that Pace did, which I wasn't involved with, but what's the payback if we only did one of those, and how does that pencil out versus this? We might be spending
Dave?
$20 million, but it might be a better deal for the city. I don't know.
Dave, you cut out
looking
for
at the
me.
Pace a little bit closer and asking, but if these numbers are accurate, I like the way it's penciling.
Okay.
The way it looks
Thank
right
you.
now, it pencils out pretty nicely right there. So I'd like to more on that.
All right, Councilmember Legero.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks pretty good on paper as far as phase one goes. I like that, the proposal. I also like phase two. Yeah, they are cost of the projects, but the bottom line, how are we going to make sure that we're not passing on exorbitant rate increases? I'm always concerned about actually realizing the savings and things penciling out as they are in the charts here. So that's my big concern. If we're going to take on projects of this magnitude, that would be something new for the city, I think. But I think the benefits, as presented here, the benefits outweigh the concerns I have, and I would be inclined to move forward with them with a little bit more evaluation and spend some more time with the analysis.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Merkin?
I would concur with Councilman Legero at the assessment. I really liked phase one. Some questions maybe on phase two, but when you when you really look at this, we really need to do something with that sewer capacity and the wastewater plant out there. I mean, we're talking about something very antiquated, costs us a lot of money. I don't see how we could go wrong by upgrading that and creating more space, which will allow us to grow a little bit.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Merkin. Mayor Pro Tem Alves.
Well, I think it's pretty much been covered by the council members that already spoke. I think everything looks about the way they all said. I think Councilman Legero's comment about be careful with the rates and what they do if we do this is one of my primary concerns. And then the other thing is that I think the fact that we're going to be improving the efficiency of the plant is a good thing. And if we can save money at the same time, that's a good thing. But I think I would like a little more time to take a review of what's been shown. I missed the first part. I apologize again. But I do want to review it. And after that, I'll have a more accurate answer.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, and I'm going to chime in. To me, the reason I keep asking what's the lifespan of these projects is because, I want to be thinking long term. I think we all want to be thinking long term, 2-3 generations out in this town. And I know, we've had Ashu. I know we've all talked quite a bit before. I know you presented us before, and I know Escalon's a little different. And this town likes the fact that it's a small town. And how can we do that, without becoming beholden to development down the road? And they would promise to do these projects and things like that. How can we maintain that independence? And I think that, to me, is core. And if we can do it, again, without putting a huge burden on our citizens, on this generation, to be able to get something for the next 2 generations or more, I'm very much interested in continuing, this pursuit.
Well said, Robert.
Does Ashu, do you have enough to go with now?
Absolutely. I mean, that was more than what I was looking for. So I appreciate that. We just, like I said, no guarantees. You can all change your mind next time we bring it exactly same project in front of you. But from what I've heard, we'll at least, we are, we'll move ahead and we'll bring back. Let me just cover one more slide. I wanted to talk about the timetable here, and that's the other point I wanted to make. These are the program benefits. We have already addressed most of it, so there's nothing here that I need to talk about. But just a sort of a roadmap. What we had, here we are, board study session today. Um, we hope to bring the phase one project in front of the council with firm cost, firm savings. Um, September, maybe it'll slip to early October as long as staff is has adequate time to analyze it and approves of it. So we'll bring it to your council for approval. Then we would like, because it's a big project, and we'd like to do a study session with concrete costs, or at least, plus minus 5%, if not actually firm cost, and all the savings and revenue streams outlined somewhere in November, and then, if the council is interested in moving forward at that stage in November, then, we still have to draw up contracts, figure out the financing. Financing itself will take, depending on the type of financing, a month or two to develop to figure out. So hopefully by February of next year, we'll be coming to you for your consideration of the phase two, which is the wastewater treatment plant and the lift station work. So that's what I had. I don't know how to stop sharing here. Um, but anyway, so thank you. Unless there are any more questions, I really appreciate all the time, and I really appreciate the extra time that you gave us. We have a clear indication of what we need to do, and we'll be working with staff and getting back in front of your council in the next couple of months.
And we can get those hard copies anytime soon.
Absolutely, we'll ship them out by tomorrow, so we'll ship it to City Hall. So you should have.
Aju, I don't think that you need to print and ship them. I can electronically provide them copies.
Sure. I'm gonna just, there are a couple of cleanup things I want to do on the presentation. I'll send it to you tonight, a revised copy and just a couple of edits and just typos basically. And then I'll send it to you, and then you can forward it to the council members.
Okay.
Well, Ashu, Carolyn, Robbie, Patrick, Tom, thank you guys very much for spending your time with us this evening and all your work that you've already put into this project. We appreciate it very much, and we do appreciate all your hard work. And it's been a lot of work already, and it will continue to be a lot of work, and it's very much appreciated. And so,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Stay with the council meeting, which will be momentarily.
No, thank you so much, and